Hello YouTube, this is Braden with Midwest Websites, your solution for business website design and search engine optimization. Check out MidwestWebsites.com today to learn how we can help you build a beautiful, professional, and SEO-friendly website in just 2 weeks. Link in the description below. If you're getting ready to build your first website, there's a lot of information to take in that can make the process seem really daunting. Whether you ask a friend or whether you're reaching out to a tech company to learn more about what you need, you're going to find out that you're going to need a few things to establish a successful business presence online. At bare minimum, you're going to need a domain or web address, something like MidwestWebsites.com for us. You're going to need a hosting plan, which is going to basically serve as the place that you're going to put your website, and you're going to need a business email address. Sure, some people on that last item are going to try and go to a free option like Gmail or Yahoo, but realistically, anybody can get a Gmail address or a Yahoo address, so it's really easy to create a fake identity with one of those addresses that's a lot less credible than if you had set up your email address to work directly with your domain name. To break it down into more of an analogy, think of your domain as a plot of land on the internet, your hosting plan is the foundation of a house, your website is the house that sits on that foundation, and your business email address as the mailbox on that land in front of the house. That said, plots of land are kind of big. You're going to want a roadmap that's going to show people how to find your house on your land, and that's where DNS really comes in. Today we're going to go over some basics of how to set up DNS so that you're aware of how all of the pieces that you're going to need to succeed online connect to one another so that you're able to get things set up cleanly and efficiently. To configure your DNS, the first thing that you're going to want to do after you buy your domain name is find out where your zone file is. As you can see here, I have a DNS management screen already pulled up here. This is using GoDaddy's DNS zone file manager, and there are a lot of different pieces of information on the screen here. Fortunately, this breaks down to a few different types of records that we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about A records, CNAMEs, and MX records. A records are going to be responsible for getting your domain to look over at your web hosting platform to show your website. As you can see here, I have a few different A records set up for different things. We're going to be looking at the one that I have set up for example here. Now, before I get too far, there are a few pieces of information we're going to go over really quickly to help make it easier to read these A records. The first is going to be the name area. Anytime you see the @ symbol, in GoDaddy's system, and as far as that goes with a lot of other domain providers, that's going to refer to your domain name itself. So the @ symbol in this case is going to refer to MidwestWebsites.com. It's just a shorthand. If you have anything other than the @ symbol, it's going to set up what's called a subdomain. So for my example here, having example means that this is referring to the subdomain example.midwestwebsites.com. A subdomain is just basically a word or a few words, then a dot, and then your domain name itself. And then in the value area here, it's going to be looking at what's called an IP address, which is just going to be a fancy way of saying where your web server lives on the internet. Getting these connected is pretty simple. Basically, you want to make sure that the IP address here matches what you have set up on your web hosting server. So in this case, we've got 107.180.6.39 for example.midwestwebsites.com, and then if we go to our domain manager, we're going to see that it's also set up for 107.180.6.39. So we know that our subdomain is going to be looking right at the correct IP address. Most people aren't going to set up subdomains for their business website. In most cases, you're going to be using the record with @, in which case you're just going to make sure that it is pointed at the correct IP address instead. Now, your IP address for your hosting platform can be found in a few different areas. GoDaddy's nice enough to have a screen here where you can actually get a lot of information at a glance. Sometimes you may have to go into your hosting plan directly in order to find that information. In this case, I'm set up on a cPanel, and I would also be able to find the IP address under the server information area here. We'd be looking for the shared IP address on this. Some of you may have dedicated IP addresses. That's perfectly okay as well. You're basically looking for the IP address that's tied in with your hosting and your website. CNAMEs are going to be a little different than A records in that they actually point at web addresses rather than IP addresses. So you're not going to have any numbers in here. You're going to basically be putting in a web address instead. It's just a different way of doing an A record, and you aren't going to have an A record and a CNAME for the same domain or subdomain. If you're going to have example.midwestwebsites.com set up as an A record, you're not going to set it up down here in the CNAMEs as a CNAME as well. Generally, the only time you're going to use a CNAME for most business websites is if you're going down here for the www version of your web address. So www.midwestwebsites.com in this example. And as you can see here, I've actually got it set up to just forward over to the @ symbol, which is my domain name. So anytime someone types in www.midwestwebsites.com, it takes them over to midwestwebsites.com. This is important just because a lot of people, particularly older internet users, do still type in www for their web addresses just as a habit. So it's going to be important to make sure that both the regular version of your domain and the www version are going to the same place. MX records are basically going to be special addresses that are set up specifically for your email provider to connect to your domain name. Your email provider is going to be able to provide this to you without any issue. It's going to be part of basic setup 9 times out of 10. You can have anywhere between 1 and 5 MX records in most cases. Generally, it's most common to have 2. But some providers, like Microsoft's Office 365, can just use the 1, and some, like Google, do use the full 5. Now, if you have your domain, web hosting, and email address all through the same provider, you're probably finished getting your DNS set up at this point. And some providers, like GoDaddy, will even take you through this process automatically as you set up their products. But what happens if you get your domain from one place, and your hosting from another, and your email address from a third place? Well, that's where things get a little trickier. The first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make sure that you know where to access your domain's zone file. By default, it's going to be with the company that you bought the domain from 9 times out of 10. However, you can change where you can actually work with this DNS management or zone file screen. To do that, you're going to use what are called nameservers. Generally speaking, you're just going to want to make sure that it's set to default. And that's also going to be the case with most providers that you get a domain name from. However, if you've chosen to buy your services through multiple providers, it's still going to be easier to manage everything in one place. And that's where you may end up changing your name servers. So let's say that I bought my domain through GoDaddy, and my hosting through HostGator, and my email address through Microsoft directly. And I want to be able to manage all of my DNS settings in the same place where I'm working with my hosting. In this case, I would need to reach out to HostGator to get the name servers that I would need to connect my domain over to them. Once I do that, this DNS management screen is either going to disappear, or using it isn't going to do anything any longer. All of these records are going to be populated over at HostGator. They're going to use whatever the default settings are over at HostGator, and then I'll set up the records as I need to over with them. This can be really convenient for going in and getting everything situated in one place. It isn't something most people are going to end up doing again, but it's important enough to know that this is something you can do that I wanted to make sure that we brought it up here. Simply put, changing name servers just changes who has control over your DNS zone file. It doesn't strictly matter who has control over the zone file itself, so long as you know where it is and know how to change the records to get everything connected the way it's supposed to be. That covers our basic primer on how to get DNS set up for your business and its website and its email address online. Thanks as always for watching the video. If it's been of help to you, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It definitely helps the channel, and it definitely helps get this information out to those who need it. If you'd like to have a different method for reviewing what I've just talked about today, you can also check out our blog. We've put together a full compilation of the information we've talked about there as well, so you can actually read through everything that I've discussed, and I'll also put this video in there as well, so you have a couple different ways to process everything that I've talked about. For people who have worked with websites for a long time, this video is going to be old hat, but if you're just getting started out, between the blog and this video, there's a lot of information that can be very helpful for getting started and just kind of understanding what you're getting into as you're working with your online presence. Thanks again for watching, and have a great day.